Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Court, a post-game live reaction show following the Spurs on the road playing the Denver Nuggets. I'm your host for tonight, Liv Moods, and this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am smiling, but unfortunately, the Nuggets did fall short tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. I think the one thing that I can maybe feel okay about is the fact that none of our starting five members were playing tonight. We had a completely different starting five this evening, which in hindsight is good for some of those second unit guys to get those valuable minutes and to feel what it feels like to start and get that playing time and go head to head and play full minutes. You know, it's important for those guys to get that. You had Zeke Naji, Hunter Tyson, DeAndre Jordan, Jalen Pickett, and Russell Westbrook as your starters tonight. This was one of those games that I think was very, very indicative of the lack of depth that this Denver Nuggets team has, which I know has been a concern for quite some time by a lot of Nuggets fans and probably even the Nuggets team as well. The difference in this season compared to others, I mean, besides the fact that this is probably the most limited our bench has been, I don't even want to say that. I don't think that the bench was super deep last year, but again, we saw what that did for the Denver Nuggets last season. I think it is super valuable to have depth and to have a second unit that you can trust. This is one of those games where I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but it does really shed some light on the fact that this is not a team that I trust as a contender this season. Do I think that this Nuggets team could get there at some point? Possibly. Do I think it's in the cards for them this year? I do not. I think that this starting five that we normally would get and that you'd like to see healthy in the playoffs has not been healthy. It's been very, very inconsistent. There has been a lack of continuity that has been able to be built with this starting five, not the one that we saw tonight, but the one that you would hope to see in the playoffs because of the injuries that have been, scattered throughout the year. I mean, you've had everybody injured. I think the player that has played the most games this season for the Denver Nuggets has been Christian Braun. And we know how valuable he is to this Denver Nuggets team and how much he's grown in this season. But all that to say, you still have quite a bit of inconsistencies, not just in your starting five's availability, but also in their production. And so it's very hard right now to feel confident and comfortable with this Nuggets team despite the talent that they have, despite the roster that they have, when in full health. I don't even know if I trust this team because I have not seen enough of them in moments where it really matters, getting really big wins. And so tonight, when you see the second unit playing the entire game, it really does shed light on how little our bench can produce offensively. Now, I do want to give a little bit of credit, of course. 106 points for a bench that has no depth, it's not horrible. You'll take it. You did get a lot out of Russell Westbrook tonight. Of course, he still did turn the ball over, and we know that that does happen with Russell Westbrook, but this is also a unit that he's not used to playing with. So much of that can be miscommunication, and we know that. One of these comments says, "Shut up, orange loser lady." By the way, I didn't lose anything tonight. I didn't play basketball tonight. So I did not lose anything. This is not my ball game, not my problem. So yeah, I mean, when you don't have Nikola Jokic, when you don't have Jamal Murray, when you don't have MPJ, when you don't have Aaron Gordon, when you don't have Christian Brown, when you don't have Nikola Jokic, you go into these types of games kind of assuming the worst, I would say. And that's a really tough situation to be in because I do think there's a lot of other teams out there that can say with confidence that their second unit is enough to at least compete. We did not see that tonight. We did not see this team able to fight through it. We did see them actually close the gap a little bit. They were down by as many in this one. I can't even remember off the top of my head. They were down by as many as 20 in this game. And then they found a way to climb back and get back in the game and lead by as many as 5. And then, of course, in true Nuggets fashion, they let the game slip away towards the end there. And that's when you kind of knew it was over because the momentum did not swing in their favor. It was swinging in the opposite direction. I will say, this is one of those games, and this is a perfect example of why I am not quick to run on Twitter and drag Russell Westbrook. Yes, he absolutely did not handle the end of that game very well last night at all. But tonight, without any of his star pupils around him, he did have a pretty impressive stat line: 30, 11, and 6, which of course you would hope so, right? When his supporting cast looked the way that it did tonight. But again, you have to give credit where it's due. I know a lot of Russell Westbrook haters out there just want to look for any reason to not give him credit. But a 30-point performance by Russ is something that I don't think Lakers fans got to see very often when he was in LA. So this is why I am not quick to slander a former MVP and a all-time great player over a bad game. I'm just not willing to do it. Can I slander the moment? Of course. I don't think I'm over the Timberwolves game. I don't expect anyone to be over the Timberwolves game. It just happened last night. I think I'm still tired from that game. It was a long night, double overtime, rookie mistakes being made by a 17-year vet. You hate seeing those sorts of things, but you do love seeing him tonight playing tough, playing hard, no matter who he's up against and who he's playing with. That is the type of player that Russell Westbrook is, and you have to love and respect him for that. And I do. You're not going to see me slander him. And this is exactly why. He bounces back. He has a great night, as we expected he would. And I also think a lot of people knew going into this game we were not going to see all of our starters. I mean, you had Nikola Jokic last night playing 50-plus minutes of basketball. You had CB pretty close to that. Aaron Gordon played quite a bit of minutes. So when you're this close to the playoffs and you know that their bodies have been pretty broken and banged up all season long, it is very, very important to give them the rest that they deserve and they need ahead of the playoffs. Let's get to some of these comments really quick. We are going to hear from Coach Malone, I believe, tonight. He is speaking here in just a bit, and we will toss to him live and get his thoughts on this one. Obviously, you can't be happy losing 2 back-to-back at home. Not defending home court is something that I think Coach Malone really takes very seriously. Defending home court has always been a priority for the Denver Nuggets because if you remember, when they won their championship, defending home court was their thing. It was one of the many things they were super great at, but they knew that they had an edge and an advantage when playing at home. We did not really see that last season in the playoffs. It didn't really matter if they were at home or not. It seemed that they were struggling regardless. Kind of feels like we might be in the same situation this season when it comes to this team. Let's see what we've got. I was so wrong about Jalen Pickett. He's got a high ceiling in the right situation / minutes. I really have enjoyed watching Jalen Pickett quite a bit. I agree with you, Tyler. I do think he has a lot of upside, both defensively and offensively. He does feel like he has a really high ceiling to be a two-way player for this team. The only thing that I worry about is how likely is it that he really does get valuable minutes when you have Jamal Murray in full health? This has been a pretty banged up season for Jamal Murray, but we've seen Jamal quite a few times. Last season actually was a relatively healthy season for Jamal, but he's been pretty banged up. And so when you have him in full health, which I would hope and imagine that you would next season, you're not going to get Jalen Pickett playing a ton of minutes. You're just not. And I do think, despite how we feel, because I'm seeing this comment here, Pickett over Westbrook in the playoffs, I agree with you 100%. Coach Malone is stubborn, in my opinion. He really, really is. There's a lot of times that his rotations do not make sense. I don't understand them. At this point right now, as much as I love Russell Westbrook, I probably would play Jalen Pickett a whole lot more than I would play Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. I do think that that is the smart decision. Now, the edge that Russell Westbrook brings, we know, is the momentum, the energy, that competitive hustle and drive. But it does feel like in moments of needing to be clutch or being the hero, if you will, and any time that the Nuggets are down and having to kind of climb their way back and stay in a game, it does feel like Jalen Pickett is the guy you want to turn to in that spot if it's not going to be Jamal Murray. So I think there's a lot of value in playing Pickett a little bit more than you play Russell Westbrook, especially as it pertains to the playoffs, because turnovers are costly, missed layups are costly, fouls late in the game are costly. We've seen all of that from Russell Westbrook this season. So Jalen Pickett has shown that he plays very tough and very hard on both sides of the floor. And so you got to respect him for that. And I do think he has a very high ceiling. And the only way you're going to really get the most out of a Jalen Pickett is to utilize him when you can. Of course, when Jamal Murray's fully healthy, we know he is going to be running point as much as he possibly can. But we also know that this Nuggets team does struggle with momentum, with their energy, with their exhaustion. We've seen it time and time again, whether it's strategic or not. The eye test is telling us many times this season that this Nuggets team is gassed. That's how they play basketball anyway. And Jalen Pickett does kind of bring this rejuvenated energy, but it's a calm and organized energy. And I think the difference is Russell Westbrook also brings that energy. His just has a little bit more chaos behind it. It can be a little bit more chaotic is probably the best word. A little bit of chaos, which can sometimes be messy, and messy creates turnovers, and messy creates, not so great decision-making skills when it really, really matters. So I do think, Jalen has that young, sharp mind that he's also still kind of like probably treating this as like an audition. He's had a very interesting story. He went to the G League. He did not have a super great summer league, went to the G League, really showed up in the G League, proved to the Denver Nuggets organization that he is valuable, and then was able to play with the Denver Nuggets when there were injuries to their roster, and came up really big for the Nuggets a lot, got defensive player of the game against the Suns. We know how clutch he can be from the 3-point line as well. So I do think part of that is just he's young. He's hungry. He has that hunger there because he's still trying to prove something to the Denver Nuggets and prove his value. And I do think that goes a long way in the league when you've got guys that are constantly trying to prove themselves. And so Jalen Pickett brings that, and I think it works to his advantage a lot. I really enjoy watching him play. For those of you that maybe didn't pay attention to the game, 17, 11, and 10, a triple-double for Jalen Pickett tonight. And again, I talk about the defensive upside that he brings. He did have one steal in this one, but he brings it a lot. When he's out there, he brings it on both sides. And that's obviously something this Denver Nuggets team desperately, desperately needs. Wanted to see a little bit more from Zeke Naji, because I did feel like when we had injuries to the starting five, we were getting some really valuable minutes out of Zeke Naji, and I wanted to see a little bit more. But again, this is one of those games where when they do get the opportunity to play full minutes, if you will, and do get those chances to prove themselves, this is where you start to see the difference between the starting five and the bench being pretty significant. It's a pretty big drop off, right? I want to talk about, turnovers, obviously, in total, this Nuggets team tonight, which sadly, 12 turnovers is actually a decent number for this Nuggets team. They've had far worse nights when it comes to turning the ball over. But when you turn the ball over, you give the other team opportunities. And when you're not shooting super well, you're not running a super efficient offense, which was expected with the starting five that we had tonight. And that is no offense to them. But honestly, I just did not expect a ton of offensive production tonight from this group. When you've got a 40% field goal percentage and your 3-pointers are 29% from the 3-point line, you can't afford to turn the ball over, because then you give the other team opportunities. The Spurs had 19 points off of turnovers tonight. So when you couple a less efficient offense with, just silly mistakes, it just costs you the game. It really does. And so the Spurs were not a team that I necessarily feared going into this matchup, but I also don't have enough trust established. How annoying was that? Established. It probably technically is established. No, there's no way. No one says it that way. There has not been enough trust established between the second unit and myself personally. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. Also, hello. Shout out to all of you here. We've got like quite a few of you here on a Wednesday night after what I would call a pretty boring basketball game. I hate to say it. Maybe that's just the bias in me because Jokic wasn't playing, and it's hard to compete with the excitement. Although it didn't end in our favor, it's hard to compete with the excitement that you had last night. And anytime you get to watch Nikola Jokic play basketball, it does feel a little bit more exciting, but also very much understand him resting his body tonight, given his performance last night. So I would call this a little bit of a slower game, a little less exciting. not just because of who they were playing, but also because they didn't come out on top. They didn't play their best basketball, in my opinion. So not a super great one, but I appreciate you guys obviously for tuning in and dropping in your comments. Hopefully we'll be hearing from Coach Malone shortly to kind of get his thoughts on this matchup. For now, I'm going to check out some of these comments. Hello, Victoria. Welcome back. Victoria actually joined us for the very first time last night. That was her first post-game live show. So thank you so much, Victoria, for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. Let's see what you guys have to say about tonight. Someone called me an orange loser lady. I don't get that. I really don't. I mean, if my skin looks orange, I don't really know what to tell you. Like I'm mixed. I cannot control what color I am. It's not a spray tan. I don't fake tan. I don't need to, thankfully. Shout out melanin. Don't have that problem. So if I look orange, then that's biology. I'm not sure what to tell you. Jalen, what was Russ doing in the fourth? You know, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think right now the Nuggets are just all out of sorts. That's the best way I can put it. I think they're in a there's an interesting dynamic happening with this Nuggets team right now where I think they truly believe that when it's game time, when it's playoff time, they can just turn it on, light it up, and they're good to go. And the rest of us are sitting here going, no, there's no way that happens. There's no way you can compete in a 7-game series against the Timberwolves. There's no way you have what it takes to compete in a 7-game series against OKC. But I think this Nuggets team is very confident in what they do well, which when they do it well, they do it very well. But we haven't seen that enough to believe that it can be done consistently throughout the playoffs. The playoffs, it does feel like you blink your eyes and the playoffs are over, but they do, it's repetition. These good habits we've seen little doses of have to be on full display for potentially 7 games many different times in order to make it all the way and win another championship. So the little bursts of good habits are all good and dandy, but we have not seen it on repetition enough to believe that it's something they can do consistently on a consistent basis. So I don't know. I'm not feeling great about it. Yeah, I'm not feeling confident in what this team is capable of bringing in the playoffs. What do you think about Carmelo Hall of Fame announcement? Okay, because most of you are probably Nuggets fans, I will just say Carmelo Anthony is my favorite player of all time. I think everyone, and I would actually love for you guys to just get in the comment section really quick and just tell me that player that maybe you don't think they're the best, and maybe you could name like a lot of different favorite players you have, because that's kind of how I am. Like, obviously, I would consider Carmelo Anthony my favorite player, but I also have like a few, I would say, that are my favorite players. I don't just have one. I have many. But I want you guys to drop in the comments the player that you have that you just like take yourself back to being like a little kid, the player that you watched with heart eyes. I felt like Carmelo Anthony, I was born in 98. So I feel like Carmelo Anthony, when I was growing up watching basketball, was just like the player that I latched onto, you know, like the braids and the silky baby blues, like, and the sweatband. Like I vividly remember watching the Nuggets, and there's a few names that come to mind, and I'll name them all, and you guys will all just be like, oh my God, what a throwback. Because they're not like players that you like, some of them, they're not players you still talk about, but like when I was a little kid, those were the players that I was like, oh my gosh, they're so cool. Earl Boykins was one. Birdman was another for me, and Carmelo Anthony. And of course, like honorable mention, Allen Iverson and J.R. Smith, like of course. But like those three, Birdman, Earl Boykins, and Carmelo Anthony, are just like when I flash myself back to being a little kid and watching the Denver Nuggets, those are the players that I'm like, oh my gosh. Like so Carmelo Anthony to me, one of my all-time favorite players. I just think he's a very nostalgic player to me. I think that's how it feels being a Nuggets fan my entire life. So yeah, I think I obviously I'm very excited. He's very deserving, and I have nothing. I'm a big, again, it was very hard for me when Nuggets fans like grew this large distaste for Carmelo Anthony after everything went down, but I just could not bring myself to be mad or upset or angry, because that was just And when you love a player like that, you just want to see them thrive. Like, that's how I felt. Of course, I was heartbroken. Like, I wanted him to be a Denver Nugget for forever. But I also look at the situation as a whole and say, like, okay, when he left, we got better in a lot of different ways. And then we went on to win a championship. So, like, everything happens for a reason. It is what it is. But I will say, Carmelo Anthony is one of one for me in terms of being a Nuggets fan since I was born. So very, very happy for him. I'm looking at some of your guys' comments on who your like nostalgic player is. Let's see. Melo and AI. I'm with you, Don. I agree. Tim Duncan, great one. Russell Westbrook, Russ. We've got a lot of Russes. I love that. See, and I think if you like love that player, no matter what, you just like you're ride or die for them. Like Carmelo Anthony, I get it. I understand like people's sadness and frustration with him leaving, but I to me it was just like whatever. This is a business. I know how this business goes. It is what it is. I did not have any hard feelings. Michael Jordan, really wish I was like old enough to appreciate Michael Jordan's greatness like with my own two eyes. Like I just don't think I was like I just yeah, I don't wish I was older. I like my age, but it would have been really cool to like appreciate his prime like live in the arena. I can't say that I have. So you can't hate on Melo. I always loved him. I'm with you. So much love for Melo. Love Chauncey Billups on the Nuggets. You know, there's a little piece of me that would not be mad if Chauncey Billups became the Denver Nuggets head coach. I'm just saying. I get quite impressed with what he's done with Portland. Honestly, I know that they're not like this, like, oh, I get it. But I don't know, something about like having a coach that's like got roots here and has love for the city and love for the organization. Like I always love stuff like that. Maybe I'm a cornball, but like I really do. I would not be mad about Chauncey Billups being the head coach in Denver. That is not me shooing Michael Malone out of his position. I'm just saying that nostalgia we're talking about here, I would love to see it. I'm trying to read some of these. Chauncey Nugs and Nene. Oh, Nene. Oh my gosh. I actually was at a Nuggets game and they showed Nene on the Jumbotron. And everyone stood up and started clapping and cheering. I feel like he's just a lovable guy. I really do. But he was recently at a Denver Nuggets game and saw him there. And I was like, oh my gosh. I just think there's so much like, this is live. This is live. Marlon, thank you for joining. This is live. I go live every night after the Nuggets play. We do post-game live shows. So yes, this is live. I'm in my home studio right now. I'm saying hello to Marlon. This is all live. Yes. So thank you so much for being here. Vince Carter, easily my GOAT. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I don't know. Carmelo Anthony for sure is my nostalgia player without a doubt. Back to this Denver Nuggets team. Back to this game. Oh, gosh. I am with you on this one. Absolutely. Absolutely. Love, love, love. There's so many. Oh, my gosh. Shout out here from Brazil. Oh, my gosh. Thank you for tuning in. What time is it in Brazil right now? That is so crazy. Isn't it so crazy to think that, like, I just sit in my home studio, do these shows after every game, and like you just never know who is like watching and tuning in and who is like a fan of your work and who, a lot of times when I go to Denver Nuggets games, I will a couple times. I'm not going to make it sound like I am not an influencer. I am not of any type of celebrity status. Not even close. Not even close, not even a little bit. But Denver's relatively small, okay? So I'm not trying to gas myself up here, but I do think Denver's pretty small, especially the sports like fandom and like the media market. But I will get approached from time to time and people are like, oh, I love watching your show. And that's so cool to me. But like when I hear people say that they're like Brazil, that is the coolest thing ever. 1 a.m. Wow. Oh my gosh. I was going to say you are probably so tired if you were watching last night's game, but understandably so. I think it's hard to go to sleep when you know that Nikola Jokic is about to drop a 60 piece. I don't think anyone wanted to turn that game off. It was pretty remarkable. Also, do want to give oh my gosh, for Reed, yes, See, there's so many just like good nostalgic Nuggets players, which is so funny because I don't think like I actually got a ton of comments on TikTok today of people being like, I didn't know Nuggets fans existed. I was like, what? Like, of course we exist. But I don't think like up until their championship run, people just like did not care about Denver at all. And we were relatively quiet as fans because we didn't really have anything to talk about. Like there was a lot of really great players that came in and out of Denver, but they weren't able to do anything with their talent. So it just kind of like fell by the wayside, you know? Um, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Manimal, oh my gosh, you guys. This is like so taking me back. I kind of miss that era of basketball sometimes. I really do. I don't know. I think it feels like way cooler when we had less access to these players and like you really got to know them solely based on how they played basketball and like their post-game interviews. And like now social media just like makes us feel like we know these people and we don't, and we feel entitled to like share our opinions. Like Russell Westbrook last night was a great example. Like back in the day, yes, fans would get mad. You know, I'm sure they would react at games and get all irritated, but it's like you weren't going on Twitter and like annihilating his character over a bad game. You know, you'd maybe like throw a tantrum, punch a poster in your room, stomp on your jersey, and then you just have to cry yourself to sleep and get over it. Like be a big boy, you know? Now it's like we have way too much access to these players where we think like, yeah, I don't know. It's just the world is weird. The world is very weird. But anyway, back to the Denver Nuggets, back to this game. It is a really great example of the lack of depth on this team, which I know has been a concern that has been discussed and talked about and slept on, and everyone's trying to figure out what has to happen in the offseason. And I think that's really what this game kind of reconfirms, is that there does need to be some serious conversations following this season about the changes and the different things that need to be amped up in terms of getting new guys, training some guys. I just think this is a really great example of like, okay, you take away your guys who weren't able to beat the Timberwolves last night. So there's still some issues there. And of course, you were missing Jamal Murray and MPJ, I understand. But even with a healthy starting five, this Nuggets team has struggled. Then you take away all of those starting five members and look at what you've got in your second unit. I mean, neither one of those right now. I think that's where I'm at, is the healthy starting five that you hope to see in the playoffs and the second unit based on tonight's game. Neither one has my trust right now. Neither one makes me feel confident in what this Nuggets team can do in a deep playoff run. And at the end of the day, this is a business. These players don't just play. Yes, they love the sport. Yes, it is their job, but they also want to win championships. It's very simple. That is the end goal. And what the Nuggets have right now is not going to get them there. I don't care if all of your starting five members are in full health. We're seeing a lot of teams with very, very reliable second units that are at the top of their conference, that are contenders, that will and can make a deep playoff run. That's what we're seeing. This comment here, you don't trust Russ. Never said that, but Russ can't do it alone. Do I trust Russ in big moments in the playoffs, do or die, game 7 on the line? I don't think I do. And I don't think that's a bad thing for me to say. But I also don't think that that's what the Nuggets got him for. The Nuggets did not get Russ to be the clutch hero. You know, that was not what they needed him for. So Liv suggesting Nuggets are getting bounced. I mean, I've always kept it very real on my shows. Based on tonight and based on the season, I don't have a lot of faith that this team is making a deep run. That being said, faith is developed through trust, okay? When I look at this Nuggets team on paper, I've said it many times, this is one of the most talented rosters in the NBA. I believe that. I love this Denver Nuggets healthy roster. I think they're one of the best of the best. But I have not seen it enough consistently and against the right teams to believe that they're able to do what I know they can do, if that makes any sort of sense. So, it's not it's less about it's less about me thinking they're going to get bounced, and it's more about me just being transparent in the fact that I haven't seen enough to believe that they can make a deep run. That's what it really boils down to. So I hope that doesn't come off as like super, super negative. Um, but I do think that, there's an element here where it's I'm just keeping it real. I'm just keeping it real, transparent. Really quick, we're gonna toss quickly to Coach Malone, actually, hear his thoughts on this one. Obviously, like I said, and like I'm predicting, I'm not sure he's going to be super, super thrilled with the fact that in back-to-back nights, the Nuggets did not defend home court, because I know how he feels about defending home court. But we've got about 2 minutes here. Let's take a listen to what Coach Malone has to say about tonight's loss against the San Antonio Spurs. Let's check it out.
Like about the way the team kind of was able to make this a game, and how did it kind of go like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they started off like 9-0, and we couldn't make a shot. Got a lot of great looks. And I could tell some of the guys that hadn't played a lot, just they were playing so tight. And that was my message throughout. Like, everybody, just relax, play hard. If you're open, shoot it. If you miss it, who cares? Just keep playing, just stay with it. So I love the fact that we got down by 20 and we stayed with it. We didn't just let go of the rope. We fought. We cut it. Obviously had chances in that fourth quarter. And just down the stretch, obviously not able to get timely stops, timely rebounds, and weren't able to execute and convert on the offensive end. Second half, we held that team to 39%, 44 for the game, without, 5, 6 guys that are rotation players. So it's 2 games in a row where you hate saying, man, we played hard tonight. That should be a given. But I'm proud of the effort. A lot of guys that hadn't played rotation minutes got a chance tonight. And, Jalen Pickett got his first career triple-double. Really happy for him, proud of him. He did a lot of really good things in the Minnesota game that we didn't talk about, that I didn't talk about. And then he follows that up tonight in the second career start and gets a triple-double. So I wish he would have come in a win, as does Jalen, but he put on a really special performance.
How much more confidence do you have in Pickett to play critical minutes down the stretch here for you guys?
Every chance, Vic, he's gotten a chance to play this year. Every time he goes out there, he plays well, and he's proven himself to be trustworthy. And he takes care of it. He's not going to wow you. He's not going to do anything, that's going to, be on a highlight necessarily. But he's just really steady, really solid, makes open shots, makes the right plays, battles on defense, gets us organized. And guys like playing with him because he's going to make the right plays. And so, obviously, hats off to Jalen for a special performance in his very young NBA career.
Can't help but wonder here, and you guys know me, I keep it honest around here. We have very open dialogue about a lot of different things. And in no way am I suggesting that Coach Malone got to go after this season. Now, if the Nuggets are bounced first round, I'm here to tell you right now, I do think the front office has got to have some conversations about whether or not keeping Coach Malone is a good idea. Now, this has nothing to do with Coach Malone not being a good coach. But what I do think we've seen quite a bit this season is him being out-coached and him not necessarily having, I don't want to say control of the locker room, because I don't think this team has gotten out of control by any means. But I just don't know if he has that, aggressive nature that I think is needed when you're dealing with as much star power as you're dealing with on this Nuggets team. Now, a lot of non-Nuggets fans will say star power. There is a lot of star power on this team. When Aaron Gordon is playing his best basketball, star power. When MPJ is lighting it up and using his size and getting some boards and playing aggressive, star power. When Jamal gets that blue arrow magic going, star power. Jokic, I don't even have to say anything. Christian Brown has proved he is a star. So you have a lot of star power on this team, and I just don't know if Coach Malone has the how much of his coaching is authoritative and how much of it is, I trust my guys. I'm going to let them play the game that they know how to play. They still need direction. They still need strategy. There still has to be strategic rotations that take place. There still has to be a strategy outside of Nikola Jokic exists and is really great at basketball. You know what I mean? So sometimes I do think there's moments where Coach Malone gets out coached or just doesn't have that, like, I don't know. And maybe I'm misreading the situation, but I can't help but wonder if some of his calm demeanor is him kind of digesting some of what has gone down this season has been his responsibility as well. And it usually is, right? When a team is not doing well, we know the coaching turnover rate in the NBA in most major sports actually is exceptionally high. When you aren't successful as a head coach, and I'm not saying that they're not successful, they're the number 3 seed. Yes, well, God only knows what they are now after tonight, but they're sitting at the top, if you want to put them in categories, at the top of the Western Conference, not as a 1 seed, of course, but they're sitting towards the top of the Western Conference. So, of course, he's a good coach, and they've had a relatively successful season. But I think it's hard because you look at their seeding, you look at their record, you look at some of the wins that they've had and the stat lines that they're individually getting on a week-to-week basis, but it's not enough. And it's also not meeting the expectation that I think a lot of people have for the Nuggets. Like, yeah, the Nuggets are good, but they could be great. And so that's where you wonder what is slipping through the cracks here with this Nuggets team. It did feel like for a large part of this season, the lack of effort was a problem. And I would watch in post-game pressers, Coach Malone exceptionally frustrated with the lack of effort. But that's where I'm sitting there going, okay, well, if you're pissed off and you ripped them a new one at halftime, why didn't it change? Because we know that this Nuggets team has shown many, many times this season that it's like a light switch. When they want to turn on decent defense, they can. They can do that. When they want to play a little tougher and a little harder, they can. So my question is, why aren't they always? And it does make you wonder, is there a disconnect? That's probably the best way I can put it. Is there a disconnect between coaching and players right now? Because you see it in every team, but you see Russell Westbrook doing a lot of in-game coaching. You see Jokic doing a lot of in-game coaching. You see DeAndre Jordan with a resistance band around his knees coaching from the bench. So it just makes me wonder if there is a disconnect. If the Nuggets get bounced in the first round, I do think there has to be a larger conversation about whether or not the disconnect within this team, whether it's Coach Malone or not, whether it can be mended with the current coaching staff and the current roster. Something has to change, whether it's the roster or it's the coaching staff. So I'm not calling for him to be fired. I love Coach Malone, and I think it's very weird how quickly people have forgotten about just how successful he's been as a head coach here. And he's one of the most winning Nuggets head coaches that we've ever had. But it also does pose the question of, I think a lot of the disconnect does come from the very top. It does come from the front office. But at the end of the day, the front office is much more likely to keep their job during turmoil than the coaches. That's the sad reality of the coaching turnover rate that I was just talking about. It is the sad truth of the matter. So when you have a disconnect, there's the top, there's the bottom, which is the team. You've got the top as the front office, and the coaching falls in the middle. Typically, we see the coaches punished for the disconnect. Not a ton is it the players, and not a ton is it the front office. It's definitely going to be the players before it's the front office, but it's certainly not going to be the front office that is held accountable, even if they should be. So what we've seen most of the season, in my opinion, has been disconnect. There's been a lot of disconnect within this team, whether it be in the way that they play, in the way that they interact, in how they win and how they lose and who they're losing to, and all of these things. It just doesn't feel like that same spark. When they won in 2023, they just had this undeniable strong culture, family energy that just could not be stopped. And something along the lines has changed that. And like I said, whether it's on Coach Malone or not, typically that's who is usually blamed for it. And I do think there's a lot of Nuggets fans that are exceptionally frustrated with how our front office has handled things over the last few seasons and beyond. But sadly, they're less likely to be on the chopping block. And I think the more we see disconnect within this team, the more likely we're going to see changes being made. And I don't think it's going to happen with the front office, even if we want it to. So, all that being said, let's toss to the triple-double machine tonight. His second career start. Did not get a win out of it, but Jalen Pickett, we know, has been getting some valuable minutes this season due to injuries on the Nuggets roster. And tonight, he pretty much solidified the value that he can bring on both sides of the floor. Triple-double for him tonight. The one, the only Jalen Pickett. Let's toss to him from Ball Arena. His post-game presser thoughts following this loss, yes, but also his triple-double. Let's check it out.
I know it came in a loss, but congratulations, first triple-double in your career. Just when did you know you were getting to start?
Yeah, so I kind of knew I was starting, yesterday. After I started the first game, Jamal said he was out again, so I kind of had a feeling I was going to be able to play and just, trying to get into that headspace to, try and help the team, get a win. Yeah, they made sure they told me when I got close, like the last time out we had, that was close. So it was cool, but, I was trying to finish off with a win.
Did Nicole say anything to you? Like, how far you behind him? Or?
No, he did not. He just said good job, and, he was giving me, pointers, and they were doing a great job of just talking to us on the team. We really needed that tonight.
You had 11 rebounds tonight. What works for you as a rebounder? What goes into rebounding? How much is that a controllable factor for this entire team going into the playoffs?
Definitely. Rebounding, I feel, is just effort, putting a body on a guy. So if I'm on a bigger guy, I'm going to box him out. And that's not my job to get a rebound. If I take the 5 out to play, then, somebody else has to come in. And if, DJ's boxing out, then I got to come in and help and grab all those long rebounds. So we got rebound as a team. And when we rebound, we get out in transition, and we're really good.
You mentioned it, but what are those huddles like in a game like this where you have a lot of experienced guys, a lot of guys who are usually playing in street clothes, kind of chipping in or maybe saying whatever, whether it's collectively or individually?
It's good. It's great. It gives the guys who haven't played a chance to play. It gives some guys some rest. And, once the jitters kind of got out that first half, we actually started playing some good basketball there and some good stretches. So, I mean, it was their, first game out there, Trey in a while, Dario in a while. So, getting guys, some rhythm and being able to play was, fun.
What else did you get past the jitters?
Just being out there longer. Those first couple of minutes, you're nervous. You're trying to play the perfect basketball. And then once you realize, you maybe miss a shot or, turn the ball over, you kind of relax because everybody makes mistakes. So once you make those mistakes, just coming back and still being aggressive helps.
As you look back at this game and try to diagnose what went wrong with coach time, as a team, what do you kind of wish went differently besides the score?
Yeah, kind of got tight at the end. We got we fought all the way back, got a lead, and then we had a couple turnovers, couple missed shots, so we kind of got tight. And, that just goes to only having a couple people play real clutch minutes. So it was fun. It was a great learning experience, and, just going to kind of try and keep building forward.
How much of that coach time is just learning it over millions?
Definitely. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And then just knowing, everybody makes mistakes in the clutch. People don't try to, maybe miss a shot, miss a layup, turn the ball over. You just got to come back the next play and try and get a stop.
Does clutch time experience in a G League game?
Everybody makes mistakes in the clutch. I love hearing him say that. I just really love his story, his situation here with Denver. I think there's a lot of ego that is involved with being a professional athlete. And so to be able to set aside your ego and understand that this is a business and the team has to do what's best for the team at all times. Sometimes that gets a little gray. Sometimes I don't feel like we always do what's best for the team at any given moment. But I do think him being as humble and open to learning and growing and evolving as a player as he's been and being such a great sport about it and then finally getting his moment and in such a big way. It really stinks that his triple-double, I made a comment on Instagram and said 61-point triple-double wasted. And someone was like, wasted? It's like, Yes, because I know how Nikola Jokic views this game. Like, he doesn't care about a 61-point triple-double unless it is accompanied with a win, and it wasn't accompanied with a win. So, yeah, it does feel like sometimes these things are wasted. And Jalen Pickett getting his second career start, getting a triple-double in this game is huge for him. And I hope he just takes it, uses it as motivation and fuel, and puts his head down and stays focused. But it does stink that it can't come with a win as well. I will say it will be interesting to see how the remainder of this season unfolds. It does feel eerily similar to last season, where a game against the San Antonio Spurs late in the season meant way more than it should have because of some of the games we let slip away. There have been a lot of losses this year that this Nuggets team has had that they had no business losing those games. And now it's going to bite them. And I actually said very early on, when BK would try to calm me down and say, Jamal's going to turn things on following the All-Star break. A lot of these guys, I think they just kind of play it safe until that All-Star break and then they're ready to go. But every game matters, especially in the Western Conference. It is so competitive. It is so talented in the West. And so when you let games slip away to the Clippers, to the Wizards, it's going to bite you late in the season when you're fighting for good seeding position because you're scared to face the Timberwolves or you don't want to face OKC. Like, these games, these losses that they kind of just let slip away are going to be costly. And so every game moving forward matters for this Nuggets team. And the really tough part about it is we've now seen in a game that there's something missing from this second unit. They just don't have enough. I'm not downplaying the talent that we've got in our second unit, but it's just not enough when you compare it to the rest of the league and what their bench guys look like. And so it is a tough position to be in right now. It can feel very defeating, and that is, I think, a normal feeling to have as a fan of a team that is very talented, and they were kind of coasting all year. And so again, that's where I'm trying to hold on to. Maybe they don't care who they face. Maybe they are so confident in what they've got and they know that their energy and their health are the two most important things. And if they can have those as they enter the playoffs, it doesn't matter who they face, they will be okay. Maybe that's what they believe, and I hope that's what they believe. If that's the case, then I'll believe it when I see it, and I hope I do. I love this team. I think this team is so beyond talented. I defend this team a lot to the haters out there because I know that this team is great. We just haven't seen it enough to believe it, and so to the doubters out there, I don't blame them. To the people that think the Nuggets are getting bounced in the first round, I don't really blame them because we haven't seen enough from them on a consistent basis to believe that they are capable of competing against the teams that are in the West. I mean, this Western Conference is scary, period. So that being said, one day at a time, one game at a time. I am happy that our guys got some rest because they're hitting the road and they're facing the Golden State Warriors on Friday, and it is not going to be easy against that team. You start letting Steph Curry cook from the three-point line. You start letting Jimmy Butler get hot. You get an aggressive Draymond Green in your face. It's a problem. So I hope they're rested. I hope they're ready for Friday because every game matters moving forward. Every game should have mattered all season. But unfortunately, it doesn't feel like that was how the games were being approached. I think there was a little bit of a strategy behind kind of pacing themselves, which to each his own. It's not that's on them. The playoffs really, in so many ways, feel like kind of a fresh start for everybody where, yep, seeding does matter. But you got 7 games to prove yourself. So you got to figure it out. And a lot of times you see the underdog prevail because they just walked into it as if both of these teams were at the same level and they played tougher and they played harder. So the Nuggets are capable of doing it. Absolutely. And there is a world in which they show up to the playoffs. They're hungry. They're ready to go. And they shock a lot of people. But they got to start taking some of these last few games pretty seriously to build continuity in this starting 5, because yet again, another night where we're not seeing the starting 5 that you're hoping to play with in the playoffs. And The more time you get with that starting five, the better, so that we can start to see those good habits becoming muscle memory so that they can just hit the gas pedal and go when the playoffs start. So that is the hope. That is the wish. That is the prayer. If you guys don't see my new little addition to my thing here, pray, pray, pray. There's other words on there. I think it pray on it, pray over it, pray through it. And if that is not being a Denver Nuggets fan, then I don't know what is. So pray on it, pray over it, pray through it. And God bless our Denver Nuggets. Okay. I'm getting out of here, you guys. While we've still got a little bit of like time before it's 1 a.m. No, last night was a very long night, but what a game. Still not over it. I'll get over it. It is what it is. And hopefully they're resting and they're getting themselves ready to go for Friday. Friday is going to be a big one against the Golden State Warriors. So fingers and toes are crossed for that one. I appreciate you guys always for joining me here for another post-game live reaction show presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Shout out to our friends over at Trusted American for helping people save money. That is literally what they are designed to do, getting you better interest rates, lowering your monthly payments. Shout out to our friends over at Trusted American. You can actually head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money. So go ahead and do that. And also be on the lookout tomorrow, another off-court episode live from the studio at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll break down the Western Conference as a whole. We'll preview that Friday night game a little bit. We'll also talk a little bit about the Eastern Conference as well. So make sure you guys are tuning in tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time, live on All Things Guerrilla Sports, X, and YouTube. So give Guerrilla Sports a follow on All Things Social. Subscribe to our YouTube. Thank you tons for joining me. Again, love you all. I'm seeing all of your comments. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you tons, and we will see you tomorrow.